Good afternoon, family. Good afternoon and blessings.
Everybody out there?
Yes, thank God for this opportunity. I tell you, I thank Him every time I'm here because I know that Hosea 6 says, well, my people will perish for lack of knowledge.
That's right.
And what we're trying to do is in the voice of our beloved, belated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he says, truth crushed to the earth will rise again.
That's right.
I really believe that because we've been getting so many truths lately.
Yes, that's right.
This has been a really exciting month of April.
Yeah.
You know, starting with the very beginning. I think a couple of weeks ago, I was in Florida.
That's right.
To a family, not a family reunion, class reunion. I got to explain that one very quickly. But before I go into all that, I just want to thank my crew here. I want to thank my producers, Lula Salvador and Sheila Bird. I want to thank Juanita, my advisor, and of course my co-host here. Just so pleased you're here every time.
Glad to be here.
And of course the man Norm. Norm is just keeping us real here. He keeps his stuff going, giving me the space to talk about what I need to talk about. And when I say need, we need to talk about the truth.
That's right.
You know, because we get a lot of information, no doubt about that, but not all the information is truth. What I try to do here is bring truth.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
I try to tell it like I know it is.
That's right.
And when I say I'm Ruby Williams Shiver, the unapologetic amateur looking for experts in Africanism, I mean that sincerely, not to be cute or trying to be a catchy phrase. I mean that sincerely. Mm-hmm. Because when I say Africanism, I mean those who have, number one, studied us in thoroughly from the beginning. Right. And they say that God made us first. Mm-hmm. So you got to know that. Mm-hmm. Then you got to know that we were kidnapped. Before that, then you know the what we did in Africa.
Yeah, we're kings and queens.
Kings and queens,
That's
and
right.
some other things.
That's right.
All the things that we've done that people have since followed, or borrowed,
That's
or
right.
stolen,
Yes.
snatched from us. And then after that, you got to know how we were kidnapped, and how we were brought through the Middle Passage.
That's right.
And what happened as we was hoisted on the slave ship, slave block. Sold,
That's right.
you know, and our children snatched from us, our husbands snatched from us, our wives snatched from us. And then after that, the treatment we got, unlike any other that we ever experienced in the history of the world.
That's right.
So we are uniquely, we have unique situations about us that does not even compare with anyone else. That is what we're trying to bring here, to make people think from a different perspective.
Right.
Not just us as another
thing.
people with illnesses or whatever, syndromes, but special.
Pathologies.
Yeah, special in that we have been singularly treated differently from anybody else. And I bring that too because I was just reading somewhere. Where was I reading? About, I was watching YouTube. I went into, and I'm going to just talk about that later, where I come from. But I read about where Africans enslaved us. It sort of was a conversation around that.
They were part of
That's
that.
but what I want to do, that's why I'm be very serious about, let's redefine that word slavery.
Okay. All right.
Because if we all did what we did in terms of, and we did,
Yeah, of course.
you know,
of course.
but slavery meant something else than what we went through.
Right.
Ours was the Holocaust, the genocide, and the connection of a whole different thing, but it certainly wasn't slavery.
No.
Because what we went through was so different from what anybody else went through.
That's
So
a
I
good
don't want
point.
people to
That's a good
get
point.
confused with that. Because you hear that often if you're talking about slavery and getting into any deep conversation. Well, you know, Africans enslaved each other. I don't think so. African I'll take that back. Maybe enslaved, but we need another word for what happened to us over here the first 200 years.
That's a good point. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
so those are some things that we're really trying to get to the root of in this podcast here. And of course, the fourth thing, once we do all that, once we get all that in our brain, we got to know that there got to be a solution or approach to learning a solution. That's why we need our psychologists and folks who studied us, the same as other things have been studied.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know,
It's
so
a
we need,
process.
it's a process, and we need to be studied from that perspective,
Right.
not just thrown to anybody and everybody. Because one of the things that with us, when things happening to us, we'll just allow anyone. We'll pick anybody. We'll pick a celebrity. You know, we'll pick a sports figure.
It's too
We'll
serious
pick
for
a-
that.
It's too
It's too
serious.
You know,
We
this is-
can't
yeah,
even,
no.
Harvard
Don't
graduate.
play with this thing.
Don't play with that stuff. One of the reasons I love President Obama, I adore him.
Yes.
But when they chose him, President Obama, to deal with the issue of black men, that's why some black men was a little offended.
Yeah.
They weren't offended with him. They were offended because he implied that we have some of our men responsible. Don't accuse other folks. It was said
Yeah.
because you're responsible for your own situation. Well, that was implied,
Yes,
and they didn't like that, and I don't like that because that's assuming that we had control of our
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. No, that's,
And
that's
what
not true.
one of the two words I have in my book is explanation and excuse.
That's right. Two different
Excuse
things,
is
two
when you were
different
born in white privilege.
things.
Explanation is when you were born from the slave situation, because we have never been dealt with in terms of psychoanalyzing what these syndromes
Yes, you're
did
right,
and
that's
how
right,
long
that's
they
right.
lasted and how long they will last.
Yep.
So until we get to that point, and that's going to take our psychology. You know, I say the three elements of us getting ourselves together going to be, number one, our faith-based person,
Yes.
like our guest here today.
Yes.
People who believe in God and know that there's a God somewhere and He made us.
Yes.
Number two, we have the folks who know our history, the
Yes,
historians,
Yes.
in depth
Yes.
to know our history and where we
Scholars,
can. And the third one, of course, is our psychologists, our people who can deal with
That's right,
the traumas
therapists,
that we
yes,
went
yes,
through.
yes,
When we
yeah.
get those three together, then
Powerful,
we're
powerful.
on the move. Okay, now you know what? I have a good show for you today, as I advertised
Oh,
earlier.
Excellent show.
Excellent show, powerful show.
Powerful,
You know, we've
powerful.
been busy this month. Productive, fruitful. This has been a historical weekend.
That's right.
God is just blessing me immensely.
Oh, yeah.
Now, on Friday, I received a shirt from my class reunion in Lake Butler, Florida,
wow.
where my ancestors were enslaved. You know? And yesterday, though, on Sunday, my church, First Baptist Church of Lincoln Garden, under the leadership of Dr. Reverend Dante Quick,
Okay.
he brought us together because our ancestral roots were revealed. And I told the folks today, if they watch my show, I hope you're watching, you're going to find out, as I did, where I came from. And guess where I came from? Nigeria. And my roots are the
Nigeria, all
Fulani,
right. Oh,
the
beautiful.
Fulani
Fulani
people,
tribe. Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I'm trying to study them. I just went online
That's
earlier,
great. That's
and it's just fascinating, the things that we have done, and the contributions we made to society.
Very proud heritage right there.
Very proud heritage. But right now, and to keep it going, because I said April has been so fruitful. That happened last week when I went to Florida. I got the results of, not the result, we unveiled a monument recognizing the students who had gone to the first high school built in that little town of Lake Butler that I came from.
Yes, yes.
But prior to that, we were bused to a adjoining town called Alachua. And I was deprived of my graduation with my class
Yes.
because they built that edifice for us, $1 million edifice, to keep from integrating. So then so last couple of weeks ago when I went back, it was to bring us back together from the first high school there to now.
Yes.
So that was
yes.
historical.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
And so when Pastor did this reveal thing,
Oh, wow.
that was just perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Then on Saturday, to keep it moving.
Yes, yeah.
We had a great time.
That's right.
I tell you, it was a combination.
It was
Well, what
amazing,
it was,
amazing.
it was sort of what I talk about all the time. There's a reason for things, and there's a start and a finish.
That's right. That's
So
right.
the start of us not our relationship among us as a man and woman deteriorating came from somewhere.
Of course.
Came from somewhere.
Roots in our
So
American
I tell
slavery
you, the
experience.
Reverend,
Yeah.
the great, the eminent pastor, I'm going to call him my pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, he put something together that I want him to continue. What happened Saturday, we broached the subject.
Ooh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Reverend Leonard Grayson
Yes.
put together a group of people at a conference to discuss this dilemma between black men and black women. Now, they didn't have it that way, but I'm putting it that way.
No,
They're
but
men and women.
It got down to
Uh-huh.
that. It got
The
down to
topic
that.
was, can we talk? I was listening
did.
to the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, as I said earlier,
Yes.
and she said that some of this came from those folks who wanted to divide us and wanted to continue to divide us,
That's right. That's right.
classifying particularly the women, the Jezebels that don't listen to their men, and classifying the women, classifying the men as those men who, the men said that. Jezebel don't listen to the women.
Yeah,
Now the women got this notion, I don't need our men
You don't need a man.
because they are not the ones that provide the jobs for me,
That's
that
right.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So those are the things that have been programmed into our brain, and
That's
now we are having issues with trying to communicate amongst each other.
That's right. That's right.
But I was so pleased that Reverend Grayson put that this conference together, and I would suggest that he continue this because this is the
It's gotta be
thing we
part
going
one.
to need.
That's
Part one
It'll
of
be
it.
Part
So
2 and 3.
We have our guest here, and he has been here before. I was so happy to have him back again. So I'm just going to read briefly.
Okay, well, let me
Not
just-
going to go all of it. Yeah.
Welcome, my brother.
Welcome. It says here, for those of you who didn't hear the first time, Reverend Leonard Grayson is the program director of Project Recover. Project Recover is a research-based program in the city of Elizabeth, Department of Health and Human Services, that confronts the opiate crisis in our community. From 2015 to 2021, Reverend Grayson served as the reentry coordinator for the city of Elizabeth. His primary task was to assist public, private, and faith-based organizations in maximizing service delivery through collaborative planning and implementation of projects that serve the reentry community. With a team put in place in 2016, he said, we created and implemented the City of Elizabeth Municipal Identification Program to offer many returning citizens and immigrants a second form of ID to better access opportunity for self-development.
That's right.
Now, to date, the Municipal Identification Program has served over 12,000 residents. Today, it is now called the Office of Reentry, with a 5-member staff and $300,000 operation budget. Okay. In September of 2015, Reverend Grayson was offered a position as adjunct professor with the Department of Administration, where he began to bring his experience and love for learning to his students. In 2017, he began to work with full-time professors in the Department of Public Administration to create and implement the Keene University Reentry Research Team. Our purpose was to research information and to begin collaborating with the local public and private organizations to provide academic support in the reentry community. Now, Reverend Grayson served as president of the Elizabeth chapter of the NAACP and also currently serves as a board member of Team Interrupters, which mentors young people, and Prevention Links, which is a statewide recovery support organization. In 2019, Reverend Grayson was called to pastor True Word Community Christian Center, where he began to incorporate the values of the church with the collaborative efforts of the community to holistically serve our community. Reverend Grayson has a BA from King University, where he graduated summa cum laude and received the award for valedictorian for the concerned black personnel of King University. He graduated with his master's in public administration in 2014. Now, in 2022, Reverend Grayson received Adjunct Instructor of the Year Award by the College of Criminal Justice and Public Administration, King University. Reverend Grayson is a strong community activist that cares about the collective and personal progress of the people in his community. Wow, welcome, my dear brother. And
I'm always looking for somebody else.
You
to
look
say
around.
something.
no,
Who are they
look at
talking
yourself.
to?
What say you?
What?
Welcome here.
Listen,
Welcome.
thank you,
Welcome,
first of
brother.
all, for allowing me back on the show. I know we were here a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Gearing up for the conference that we had
conference.
Saturday. And I was privileged, and I take it an honor, to be invited back to kind of discuss the event and what the future holds, right, in regards to how we address this. And
Yeah.
so, you know, we're here now, again,
Right.
taking a look at the conversation that, as you said, we broached.
Yes, yes.
But we
started
only
the
broached
conversation.
it.
Yeah.
Right now,
But that's
we
the
gotta
good start.
Yeah, we got to start
start.
somewhere, but
Yeah.
we got to continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so
And we had Terry there. Terry, you got another question?
Well, my really more or less not a question, but a compliment. You definitely pulled together this honest conversation between men and women, and it was definitely that. And I guess my question to you would be, how did you feel about it? Did you just accomplish what you were set out to accomplish?
well, yeah. Well, I feel the need for the conversation for myself and for the people of the community that I serve in general,
Yes.
and because of the historical context of slavery, we know that we're dealing with some issues that are ours,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to remember that while we're trying to serve the whole community, we got our own issues
Yeah.
that we have to deal with ourselves. So, I mean, you know, I'm divorced, right? And I could offer, you know, that communication or lack thereof was a big part of that because we didn't know.
Yeah.
We tried, but we tried to figure it out on our own.
Right.
And so through the process, you learn,
Yeah.
That's right.
right? And unfortunately, you learn sometimes by the errors you make.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say this, that it was George Santayana who said, those who repeat the past or who forget the past are doomed to repeat it,
That's right. That's right.
right? And so when we talk about the slavery dynamic, I think it's safe, I hope it's safe to say that that would never happen to us again. But I would also think it's safe to say that it would never happen to us again within that context, but it is happening to us again through the other tools of oppression
Yeah.
Well, that's
that
the
are
thing.
being used.
And I like-
Right?
yeah.
Systemic racism is still alive, right? Inequities and social detriments are still alive, right? And so we've got to remember our history
Yeah.
in order, right, to move forward. Now, we also know that Ruby just said, I think it was Hosea 4:6, right? The people will perish from a lack of knowledge,
That's right. That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And in that particular verse, he was talking to the priests who were the representatives of the people.
Right. Right.
And he said, because of your lack of knowledge about your history with me, right, you're ignoring everything I've done for you. So now I'm going to ignore you, right? So the lack of knowledge will also get you in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh,
then
yeah.
you go into Proverbs 29, which says, without vision, the people perish.
That's right. That's right.
Right? So you got a historical context, you have a present context, and you've got a future context. Right?
Yeah.
And so all of them lead to what are we going to do about tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's a good point, and I like always. It's so interesting. We went to the conference, and Ruby was one of the panelists. along with Reverend Michael Hopper and his wife, Paige Hopper, and Reverend Leroy Minton, who was a psychotherapist. And the four of them gave us a perspective that it blew my mind. You know, the way that they were interacting with each other. You know, it seemed like they were all writing one book. But I think one of the things that Ruby always talks about, and I really appreciate for us, she says, we went through this 400 years of just a terrible experience. But the thing is that people say, well, forget about it, it's in the past and whatnot. But she says, and you know, and it came out in the conference, well, we got past it, but you know what? The wounds. We have wounds, and these wounds need to be healed.
Yeah.
Because that's where we, you know, what the brother said, we were in psychological warfare. And what I like about the conference, Ruby and Leonard, is that you collectively gave us a new set of tools to deal with this.
Right.
You know, we need these tools.
Right.
And we need to spread these tools.
Right.
Yeah. And having said that, would you want to just tell us briefly about the conference so we can excite other folks to know what we was excited about?
So they can be what is part two, right?
Well, the concept of it came from multiple areas.
Yes.
One, it came through my own life experience, right? Like I said, I'm divorced, right? And a large part I give to the lack of communication, right?
Yes.
Then because of the arena that I work in, right, with gentlemen and women coming home from incarceration, dealing with recovery, right, a common thread that I noticed was their ability to communicate. I saw a lot of the infighting came from an inability to communicate, right?
Yes.
When I say an inability to communicate, I mean the inability to honor and respect somebody's feelings and point of view.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So whether you come from a male perspective or a female perspective, which we both have different perspectives, the real question is, are you listening? Right? Are we listening to each other? And so we wanted to make sure that this event was not leaned too much on simply theological and spiritual dynamics, nor did we want it to be too much on practical tools, because the use of practical tools are better served when you have a spiritual foundation. So we needed spiritual people who were learned, educated, and capable of explaining, bringing to life or bringing to light issues that we are all aware of, but scared to talk about.
No excuses, explanations.
Right.
Okay. And that's what
absolutely. So now you have to find a few people who independently bring a component, but synergistically bring a conversation. A holistic conversation. And that's what we did. We dealt with the historical context. Ruby talked about her book, Ode to the Black Man, right? And Paige Hopper, you know, brought her book to light, right? The healing of wounds of American slavery. And they talked about the reality of what we try to dismiss, that those things still play a role in how we act today.
Right. And
right? So to dismiss that means you got a problem you can't identify. And if you have a problem you can't identify, then you can't find a solution.
Exactly.
Right? So you got to identify the problem.
And recognize that there are truths that we haven't been dealt with. We've been given mistruths.
Right.
And when I sometimes use that quote, the scripture, Hosea 4:6, and say, my people will perish, someone say, no, but he's talking about spiritual. I said, well, I don't know what's more spiritual than us loving ourselves from the person that we've been, you know, we were birthed from. You know, from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He wants us to love ourselves. And the way we have come along to hate ourselves, that part of the truth crushed to the earth. You know, because if we don't tell the truth about who we are, our children even get just confused about loving themselves, loving their skin color, loving their hair, loving whatever part that God has made of them, to the extent that we hate It brings
Yeah,
hate
that's-
amongst us.
self-hate is part of our wounds.
Self-hate. So that's
a
why
wound.
it has to come from that.
Right.
When
It
I
has to.
quote that, and people say sometimes, "Oh, no, that's a spiritual quote." That's what I say. I don't know what be more spiritual.
Well,
than us loving
that's from
ourselves.
lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge.
That's from lack
I
of
don't know
knowledge
what can
because
be more
Hosea
spiritual.
was not speaking spiritually. He was speaking a reality
Yeah.
that this God had delivered you. And all he's asking for you now is to respect the covenant that he had created, laid out for his forefathers.
Right.
I will
that's a
be
good
your
thing.
God,
Yes.
and you will be my people, as he
Yes.
explains in Genesis
Yes.
16, 17, in that area somewhere. I believe it was 17.
Yeah.
But so the lack of knowledge was not some spiritual, mythical, theological perspective. It was basically saying, be careful of the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right? That's all he was saying.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be very careful about that. But
Yeah.
the synergistic effect for the audience, right, brought that historical context.
It did.
Pastor Michael being
Oh, yeah.
having a master's in social work,
Mm-hmm.
and Reverend Leroy Minson being a psychotherapist,
That's
Yeah.
right.
right, was bringing solutions to the realities of the past, right?
Yes,
How do you
yes.
deal with them?
That's right.
And so the audience was intrigued because we were not trying to speak with as if we were walking on litmus paper. We were not trying to walk on eggshells. We were
Right.
like, listen, we got a problem.
we
And
gotta
let's deal with
Communicate
it.
it.
Right.
Let's talk about it from
Yeah.
both sides.
Exactly.
Right, and so that's what we tried to do, and we had a good. We played scenarios about stereotypes,
Yeah.
about how women
I thought that was
perceive
very
men
interesting.
and how men
Yeah.
perceive women.
Right.
Yes.
And that was engaging because again, the stereotypes showed us to some degree that we were buying somebody else's story
How we were
about
thinking,
us.
Yeah, how we were thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, we were
Yeah.
buying those stories.
Yes.
Right? Instead of, as I said when I was on here before, Winston Churchill said, my history will be kind to me because I'll be the one to write it. Right? Well, somebody's been writing our story,
Yeah.
and we've been reading their books
It wasn't us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and regurgitating.
And
Right.
now that we are becoming aware, it just starts driving people
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Governor DeSantis, I mean, he just making rules about schools.
Right.
You know, what would you, how you can
just won't
Right.
can you
stop.
imagine
Yeah,
that?
Right.
Crazy.
So they're
Right.
just taking what little history that we thought we had to engage our children with their just, well, and maybe it's a good thing because the history wasn't history anyway. It was his story.
Let's be
His
clear.
story, yes.
Let's be clear that this conversation about woke,
Mm-hmm.
right, is not new.
No, it's not.
Because the reason they did not want slaves, quote unquote, to read is because they did not want them to be woke.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
correct.
That's
Right? And so you're going to try to tell me that becoming aware of oppression, right, is a dangerous thing for me and the community because I'm woke and I won't allow it anymore. Right?
Yeah.
That is the same psychological warfare that we have been played to for centuries.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to be aware. And so when we look at this conversation between men and women, right, I'm an unapologetic amateur looking for experts.
That's right. That's
Right?
That's right.
Now, when I say amateur, I mean that I bring experience to the table, but I bring it from my own issues and errors and the
Exactly.
people I
That's
work
right.
with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not an academic in that area.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right? So we need people like Miss Ruby Shivers and like Paige and like Pastor Hopper and like Reverend Minson, right? To bring us real, concrete information that we can evaluate for ourselves and then obviously, hopefully, prayerfully confront an issue that we know is tearing up the family.
Yeah.
And that's communication
Yeah.
between men and women.
And we're doing that with what you're
We're doing
doing,
that,
Reverend
yes,
Grace. And I
yes,
tell
that's
you, I
what
was
you're
just
doing,
so
brother.
overwhelming. I was just so excited because the message just hit
Hit you
like
hard.
that.
Hit you hard.
I said, this is what we need
That's right.
because until we get together on one accord
Mhm.
and know that we need other folks, like you say,
That's
experts,
right. Right.
to help us bring back what we lost,
Right.
like any other
Right.
catastrophe. And
That's
I
right,
say this
that's
was
right.
catastrophic.
It was.
What we
Oh,
went
yes.
through a catastrophe.
Horrific,
Still going
horrific,
through.
Yeah, yeah.
So if that is the case, then we do need other folks who have studied to a degree what we're going through. That don't mean all of us can contribute,
Right.
because particularly the ones of us who are woke,
Right.
who know
Right.
the situation.
Right.
We may not know how to
Right.
get to the result.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what make the expert.
Right.
That's right.
Not that we may know up to a point the same as they, but if they can't tell us to come to a solution and how
Right.
to get there, then you're not the expert yet.
Right.
Not yet. Not
You
yet.
But
getting
you
there.
can still contribute.
You
and
can
this is
contribute,
how
and you
you
better
contribute
contribute.
by
Doing
getting
what
the
we're doing.
information,
Mm-hmm.
right? Allowing it to transform your life,
Yeah, exactly.
and then telling other
Other.
people about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Right?
sharing.
Let
Yeah.
me share a story with you.
Mhm.
We are often afraid, for whatever reason, culturally, whatever, experientially, of coming to terms with our problems head on.
Yes,
Mhm.
I remember when I was going through my divorce, and me and my wife are ex-wife are great friends, right? We have kids, and we tried to make sure that whatever was happening to us, that we were aware that our kids were going to digest this,
Yes, yes.
and it was going to impact who they were as an individual and their own relationships,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So we made sure that we came out friends. Now, that wasn't always the case when we were going through it, right? But we tried to make sure that our ladder was better than our,
That's
right?
understandable.
So
Yeah.
I remember saying to her, we have to go to therapy,
Mhm.
right? And she said, I don't see the need. And I said to her, our marriage is in trouble.
Yes, yes, yes.
We need to go to therapy.
Right.
And she said to me, is that an ultimatum? This is a true story. Is that an ultimatum?
Yeah.
And I said, it doesn't need to be an ultimatum, because if you want to do everything you can to save your marriage, nobody should have to make that an
That's
ultimatum,
right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I expand that into other marriages where they know they're having trouble.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
The
yeah.
question you have to be honest with yourself is, do you want to stay married or not? Let's just answer that question.
That's right. That's a good
Yeah.
question. That's
Yeah.
a good question.
Because you're not going to use the tools
Mhm.
if you're not trying to do anything, right? Why would I go to the store and buy paint if I have no intention of painting the wall?
Exactly.
That's
right?
a good point. That's a good point.
So, if your intention is, if your objective is, to stay married, then you should be open to doing whatever. And I say that carefully, because the other person can take advantage of whatever.
Whatever.
Whatever. That's
Right.
Yeah.
But you should be open to,
Open.
within reason,
Yeah.
spiritual reason, not just your practical reasons.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
The world has a way of telling you had enough.
Yeah.
When God is saying, no, you haven't.
No,
I'm
you
getting ready to
haven't.
fix
Right.
this.
Yeah, we
So
gotta
you can't pay
fix
attention
it.
to the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But, we should all, again, it comes down to more than just us.
Yeah.
It comes down to the nucleus of the family. It comes
Yeah.
down to the development and growth of the children.
Yes.
It comes down to next generation preparedness,
Uh-huh.
That's a good
right?
point.
There's a host of things that are beyond you and me
Yeah.
that we can impact if we could just see way past our momentary problems.
Right.
Yeah, but I think what you brought out in the conference, you talked about we can talk about all these things, but are we committed? Are we committed to the change? Because again, we have a lot of people interested in solving the problem, but are they committed? And that's why what you did Saturday has to be part one, because we need to continue this.
Right.
But if we're committed to it, it's not a question of will we do it again. We have to do it again.
Right.
And if you notice, what I did anyway at the conference, what I thought was so unique and just really great in that it addressed an issue that we may not even have gone there within our head. It brought us to a point where we know we're different from anyone else. We can't compare our situation. So when I say even psychologists and stuff, I say relatable. I use that word because I don't just mean we go around to these psychologists around here. They don't know us, our situation. They know but they won't admit. So they're coming from another perspective.
They are.
So we have to come from always coming from the perspective that we are different.
Yeah,
we are unique.
Unique.
In that our situation comes from a place.
Oh yeah.
Once we realize that it comes from a place, then we can listen to each other.
That's right.
And you notice that even at the conference, once we say, well, men say this, men say, but who put that in our
They
head?
put it in their head, right?
You know,
Right.
it wasn't something we came up with.
Right.
You know, so people will begin to look without necessarily pointing the finger. You need to point fingers.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
point fingers
Right.
where it come from.
Right.
You missed the point.
Right.
Yeah.
You got a point,
Right.
not to miss the
Yeah.
point.
But
So
this
you
is
got
serious.
a point, and so we are doing
is
that. And I'm
serious.
so glad that you brought that. You don't know how. Just I'm
Yeah.
just inspired by what I see with a conference like that.
Right.
It brings us to a point that we are seeing it from a different
that's right,
perspective.
that's
Not you pointing at
Yeah.
you say your marriage. You know, when you were going through your marriage, your wife and you probably never thought about, or it may not have ever come to you that, you know what, the man put this stuff to him to separate us.
That's right.
Make my wife think I
historical.
shouldn't be
Yeah.
listened to. Make
That's right,
make me
right.
think I shouldn't listen to my
Right.
wife.
That's
I
right,
mean,
exactly.
thought it
Right.
was just out in there.
Right,
It's
right.
not.
No,
Well,
no,
well,
no.
that's how I got off of drugs,
Mm-hmm.
right? I saw that it was an intentional means to destroy me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
playing
You right
into
you
the
play
hands
into
of the enemy,
Right,
right?
right.
And I was
Uh-huh.
like, wait a
Wait a
second,
minute, what am I
because I
doing?
thought it was just something that was happening to me,
No.
right?
That you
and
couldn't control.
Yeah,
But
like that, that I
someone's
couldn't control.
designed to
and
destroy you.
and through listen, I got to be honest. When I was going through divorce, I had multiple separations,
Yeah, yeah.
and in those separations, when I realized that there were some serious issues with me that needed to be dealt with,
Yes, yes, yes.
I was going to therapy. I was going to men's ministries. I was transparent and vulnerable, saying, this is my issue. I would go back and say to my wife at the time, right, let's give it another shot because I think I'm a better man.
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
And the aching part that drove me really to frustration that became difficult for me to understand was that I was doing all the changing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And there is a perspective of the female coming from a male perspective that all the changes are on us.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
On us, right? We are the ones who need, like, I think I use the phrase, happy wife, happy life. But I no longer follow that mantra. I follow happy spouse, happy house.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
both supposed to be happy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
scripture talks about
Yeah, that's a good point.
your
Good point.
body being mine and my body being yours. Right? So while I'm doing everything I can to make you happy, you're supposed to be doing the same for me.
Exactly.
Now, the
Yeah, that's a
female
good point.
perspective
That's
can
a good
answer
point.
that in a way where it's like, oh, y'all don't do this, y'all don't do that, y'all don't do this, y'all don't do that. But then we go back to you're not
now
hearing
remind
me.
me
Yeah,
the
yeah,
you're not
Jezebel
hearing me.
concept.
That's right,
Right,
right.
but you're not
You're
hearing
not
me.
hearing me. You're not hearing me.
We
You're not-
have
yeah.
already been painted. We have already been
Right.
portrayed, and we have already been
Right.
designed
Right.
that we are the Jezebels of the crew.
Oh,
that we don't listen to our men, but it didn't come from us. So what going through a marriage, and once you understand that, you will go to a
Right.
therapy, a relatable one,
Right.
not just
Yeah, yeah.
any
No,
one
no,
that
that's
can
right.
understand
Right.
the situation that will bring you back
Right.
to where
Yeah.
you need to know to be able to deal with the situation
Right.
together, like you said,
Yeah.
not just on one or the other,
Yeah.
but both
Both,
together.
absolutely.
Yeah, but like
now,
you
people
said,
would
yeah.
look at me
Yeah.
right now if they were hearing this podcast, and the people who are and the people who will be, they may take the position that I'm speaking about my wife in a negative way by revealing. But the truth is, we have to be unafraid to pass on the learnings of our mistakes.
Right.
You have to. Yeah, but
Right?
yeah, but
We
you-
have to be
yeah,
able
that's
to say,
Yeah.
I messed up,
Yeah.
and yeah, you messed up too.
and we messed up.
Right?
together.
It wasn't just me, right?
Right,
It wasn't
right,
just me. So we need to get clear with that.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of relationships, we both have to bring our contribution to the mess.
Right.
We have to both be clear, and nobody's wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
but brother Leonard, you know, again, and you do this a lot, Ruby. But you talk about like these things that people we throw out. You know, I never forget some time ago they had this movie out. I won't name the movie, but I'll share the cliche. And the one character says to someone else, he says, and I hate this to even say it, but it's a meme now.
Right.
And the person says to his woman that he's fallen in love with, he says, "You complete me," and I hate that so much. You completely. But I'm saying that from what we've discussed here, you don't complete me. I don't complete you. I have to complete myself, and then two complete people could come together and we work as. But if you're broken and I'm broken, we need to heal ourselves first.
Right.
What Leonard is saying.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
well, see, we
heal
pick
ourselves.
up. Sometimes
you
we
heal
just pick.
I heal me, and then we can come together and heal each other.
Yeah, sometimes we just pick up cliches of saying that we don't even realize what
But
what
let's
they
be
mean.
clear, though.
Think
Let's
about
be
it.
clear from a scriptural point of view, right? We are two separate individuals
we are.
that when we come together, we become one,
Yeah.
right? So whether you use the word complete or whatever other terminology you may use, there is a godly purpose to two separate individuals joining together and becoming one, right? Leaving their mother and father
Yeah.
and becoming one, and let no man put asunder, right? So we do have a reason and a need to be joined together, to be whatever completed. I don't know. What do you want? Because I agree with you when you say I need to be my own person.
Let's and I like what you said. Again, I was divorced too. And the thing is that, like you said, you have many different coming together. Okay, it's not. I mean, you don't wake up one morning and say I want a divorce. It's a process, and you go through. I went through counseling and that kind of thing. But again, it's a thing where when I come to you, when you come to me, I want you to bring me the best of what you have.
And I think what you're saying is that the not that you need another person to complete yourself. You complete yourself when you get with the person. You have been completed. If you are, I'm faith-based, so I can talk from that perspective. Everyone is not. But I mean, I go to God for my direction, and He has provided me a spouse, a person that I will connect to. I need myself to be complete without having to think that I need that person to complete me. But now once we get together, like you say, we are one complete thing.
It's a new unit, and that's why
It's
we
a
talk
unit.
in terms of how can we, like I would say that it is not my problem, it's not your problem, it's our problem. If it's our problem, we're going to work on it together. But if it's your problem, then that's your problem, and I'm not going to touch that. But if it is our problem, that gives me a whole different mindset, because we're working together. We're totally.
Well, there's a lot we had to learn, and I was married for 55 years, so I guess I can school you too. I can teach you through a thing or two. No, I'm just joking. No, I am just joking. There was nothing perfect.
But there is
nothing perfect. There was never a perfect reunion.
There is a truth to that people There is a truth to the idea, and I spoke to a lady who wanted to come and did come actually, and said, I've been married for 40-something years, and I said, that's a reason to come, because you have navigated, because nobody's going through marriage and life unscarred. Let's be clear. Your marriage is not some shining light on the hill. Right? It might be on Tuesday, but it wasn't on Monday.
It's a whole different set of
right? They have learned to navigate, to put up. And there's a whole lot of reasons. Sometimes it's sometimes it's economic reasons that get you over the hump. Because you didn't move because you couldn't, and then you found each other again. And so you're glad that you didn't go anywhere, right?
Cheaper to keep her?
Yeah,
in some cases it is.
But sometimes you just got to withstand. And this is sometimes where I feel that I erred in my relationship, right? That with all of the frustration, with all of the right that I could have argued, sometimes I feel that I cut myself short. You know what I'm saying? Because I was the one who facilitated it and who kind of said, let's go ahead and, right? And so do I feel that on occasion? Yeah. I got to admit that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the real question now becomes, okay, this is what I learned. This is who I am. I did my own therapy after marriage, right? Because I wanted to make sure that when I met somebody again, that I was going to give them the best Leonard that I could.
Heard that.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
So, I learned a lot from it. Have some regrets about it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and I can't stay there because without the vision, people perish. And so
That's right.
while I have to learn from my history, right, I do not have to stay in that history because I have to have vision, right, to get myself into tomorrow, right, being the man that God ordained me to be.
Yeah.
That's a
That's what was so
beautiful thought.
important about that
Beautiful,
conference, and I
yeah.
keep pointing to that as a means of trying to allow us to get through situations that have been put upon us.
Yes,
I keep using that phrase too because I want to be very clear. Not that our situation was perfect, out of Africa. We had the village concept, and we were trying to always get along with each other. Kind of knew our role anyway.
Yeah.
But we do know for a fact that once we were brought over here, kidnapped, and the whole 9 yards, we were stripped of everything that was important to us.
humanity,
Yeah, so that was part of it, stripping of our ability to communicate with each other, and then when they thought that we might communicate it, they sold us separate, apart from each other. So we got a lot to, get through, and I'm just so pleased that
Ruby, in your book, the greatest part of that entire book, to me, was the apology.
Yeah.
Right?
Powerful.
That apology
powerful.
where the woman recognized that her resentment about the black man was misguided
right,
because he was in a place where he had no control whatsoever.
right,
Right? And while she resented him, the apology simply brought to light, I have to come to terms with the fact that what happened to me was not your fault, right? And then there was the response to the apology by the male,
yeah,
right? But again, we have to look at the women, right, who we have to say, we went off into jail because of mass incarceration.
right,
We went off into drugs because of government sanctions overseas. And this was what Bill Clinton, articulated in 1998 and what the new Jim Crow
yeah,
by Michelle wrote and talked about all of these things that were happening intentionally.
right,
Right? So we have to say to the woman who had to take over the house, raise the kids, right, be on her own, work 3-4 jobs, right, do all of this, and now think that to some degree that us coming in, we can no longer be the king of the house,
That's
right? We have to say to them, I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
right? Because you've been put in a position now that we've got to understand.
right. But you got to make sure you let the woman know, I didn't leave.
Well,
I
in
didn't
their
leave
mind,
on my
that's all
own.
they saw.
But I'm saying
Right.
we got to get it straight.
Right.
I didn't leave. No more. We've been given the wrong impression of you. You've been given the wrong impression of us,
Right.
and let's deal with that.
Right.
Because we didn't leave. I remember a time, and that wasn't 100 years ago. And my kids may disagree on that one, but that was not 100 years ago when the men were, when you got a little bit of assistance, welfare, whatever they call it, subsidy
Right.
for
Yeah.
anyone else.
Yeah.
A man was not allowed to be in the house.
Right.
See, you guys are too young for that.
No,
But there was a
no,
time.
no.
I know. No, I'm
There
very
was a
well aware.
time when you were not, and that was the beginning of the separation of our men. Because
Right.
our men take care of my dad and the rest of the men I know in my day. They took care of their children. There was not a question. They took care of their children. But when that happened, that started something that even today we overlook and don't get clear as what our problem, where our problem come from. As a result, I'm gonna continue to not look at you as my king.
Right.
You're going to continue to not look at me as your queen. But as we try to instill now, we got this little thing going that it's not what we're trying to do is to instill in us the value of us.
Yeah, yeah.
So as a result, I suggest we look at each other now.
Yeah.
You know, as we know, first of all, when we were brought over here, we were not brought over here as slaves. We were brought over here, many of us was kings and queens and royalties and all that other good stuff. So now from here on, when I look at you, I don't look at you as that man that left the children like they have painted you. I look at you as King Skier, or King whoever.
Okay.
Queen Nefertiti, Queen Nzinga, you know?
Right.
To imagine you of those people.
Right.
We will then recreate, because in my second book, Verbal Healing, that's my first one, right? Verbal Healing, one of the things I say about us, we have allowed ourselves to believe of the narratives that other folks have put to us.
That's right.
You know, and when we do that without thinking, but we need to begin to rethink whatever we see negative about us. Someone else must have portrayed, put that out there for us to believe. And if I think that you are nothing, nobody, and not a good father, and leaving the family and all that, and you can't defend it because you don't control it.
Yeah, but
the
the whole thing
situation.
about, because they were saying in the conference, the demand is to provide and protect. To go to your situation, the movie Claudine, there was a scene in there where he says, "Okay, I want to marry this woman, but now if I marry her, you're going to take a welfare, and you're going to make me do it, because if I don't marry her, then you deduct this, you deduct that." And so again, the welfare system is really the new massa who's taking care of the woman where the black man can't.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the black men, we disappear.
Yeah,
Because
and then
we
with
can't play
the
roles.
jails
We
that
can't-
they threw our black men
That's
in
right.
and
There's
everything
a
else
couple
they
of
did.
things here. One is
yeah.
right, the system of help.
Yeah.
Right, that has destroyed us in a lot of ways. Now I remember back in the 90s, I lost a job, right, over some foolishness, and I went to get help from social services.
Yes.
They back paid my rent for a few months,
Okay.
gave me like over $1,000 in food stamps, paid my utility bills, and said, "Come see us again next month and we'll be continuing this." And I said, "Hell no."
I don't do that. That's
Because
slavery
that's
right
going to
there.
make me lazy. Right? You about to take care of me and have me sitting at home, right, watching TV all
for the
day.
check, yeah.
I was like, no. I'll take my 1 month. Thank you very much. And I went out there and got me work and then progressed myself more. And then I ended up getting a business and starting a business, right? And but I refused, right, to let the system, right, denigrate me
That's right.
to, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but to just sitting
Fall
on
into that situation
Right,
that
right,
they're
right,
planning
yeah.
for
And
you.
then less of the men,
I
less
got
of
out
the
there
virus.
and hustle, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about illegal hustling, which I did do for a little while. But here's the other part. The other part is, and this is from a male perspective, but we need to start identifying, and this is where some of the experts will come in, as to when women started believing they could raise a family without a man. Like, where did that come from?
I tell you where it came from. Well, just let me recognize my folks here. Rashida Johnson, thanks for Devon, that's my nephew. We have a very proud heritage. Oh, yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, Lula Salvador watching, Sheila Bird watching, Dana Robinson. Say hi, Pastor Grayson.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Steve Robinson. Robert Cabbage Dog, we're watching. Don't go so fast. Paul Green, John Richards is watching. Robert Cabbage Dog, Rashida Johnson, Nicole Palmer Guest. I am so pleased when you all keep watching, because this is
Yes, it's
very
important.
necessary
It's
and
important, yeah.
important for us to get our history right. I don't mean just history for history's sake. Like I say, we can hear a lot of information, but true history is something that we got to make sure
That's right.
that those of us who realize that there's a different kind of history than what we've been. Hi, Miss Ruby, great conversation, Taraka Gilbert. And I'm so pleased again that you all are tuning in because this is so necessary.
It is.
Like I say, when I went to the conference this weekend, see, God is working with us. I mean,
amazing.
seriously
Amazing.
working with us. And I know that. what I envision. I tell everybody I didn't start this stage of my life on this podcast just for the sake of it. I have other things to do. I have great grandchildren I could be taking care of, which I don't want to do that. But at least I could be doing that. But I'm here because God has provided me this opportunity. He knows that I am so desperately committed to our people, getting knowledge that's going to help them reverse the situation that we find ourselves in, not allowing our men to think that they are or what they have been portrayed as. They've always taken care of their families, and the women, we're not the Jezebel, that people talk about. We love our men, we love our kings. And I suggest that we continue to visualize. You don't have to call them out. Just when you see one, a black man anywhere, just assume him as being your king. When you see a black woman anywhere, just assume that she's that queen that they brought over here. And we'll get through. We'll get through.
We will, but like you said, we have to continue the conversation.
Yes.
Right.
We can't let that drop. We got to continue.
Because we definitely have to address this false assumption that women can raise a family on their own.
Oh, they know.
That is a stereotype that women have bought into, right? And I feel that until they come to terms with acknowledging the godly role, right, that we have in that nucleus. We all play a role, right? Imagine trying to drink water without a glass.
Right. Well, see, imagine
trying to drink water with a glass with no water in it.
Yeah, but Reverend, you imagine, too, how did they come to that conclusion?
Right, well, absolutely. And that's what we need to be open to.
Because it's not natural.
Right, we have to be open to discussing it. And the problem, I think, is partly that we are not open to discussing it.
But why aren't we open to discussing it?
Well, that's
what you're doing with the conferences.
Right.
We got to know that our people, again, I'll make the comparison because God gives me that opportunity to compare. I don't know how to articulate it. But with this pandemic that came out, and it was hurting us in different ways and affecting us in different ways, we didn't assume that Ruby, this amateur, would know the direction to go in to take care of it. It was so different.
Yeah,
It was not like the regular flu or the regular cold or the regular. We got that already. To take the whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But we had to figure something different. So our situation, and if we can ever understand that ours is so uniquely different than anything else that ever happened in the annals of history. I don't even read biblical history that talk about what we went through because we were stripped. See, that's the two things that made us different. We were stripped of everything,
language,
and also
name,
everything, and also we were treated differently. When we were burned at the stake, we were raped. Our mother's belly was cut open and stuff that no other human being had to go through in slavery. So once we get that in our heads, okay, we got to bring people like yourself in to get these conferences going so we can open up and talk about it. Now, we had experts now, Dr. John Henry Clark and the rest of them, but they are people that was ignored. I'm talking about the system didn't allow them to come together to any degree so that we can make use of their knowledge. But now, since we know, we got to insist that we bring people together under whatever way we can, that we will understand where we're coming from.
Because women have to come to a place where they conclude that giving a man a rightful place in the house does not reduce them.
That's a good point.
It strengthens them. But they have been, as Malcolm X would say, hoodwinked,
bamboozled,
led astray, bamboozled, to thinking that they can raise kids, run a house just as good without a man's presence being there. Right? If that were so, God would not have created men and women differently, bringing two various levels of strength to the relationship. Women have their role, men have their role. Neither one is demeaned. Now, I will say with a lot of women, right? They're looking for that man, as Paul would say, follow me while I follow Christ. Well, I ain't going to be perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So let's deal with that right away.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
bring some issues to the table,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you know. But with that said, I appreciate being on the show today.
Oh, I
thank
appreciate
and
you.
look
We got to
forward to
keep
more
you coming.
conversations about this.
We got to keep you coming because I tell you, you're just very helpful in trying to help us discern all the stuff that I often talk about going on in our relationship, our lives. Because I'll say it again and I'll say it forever, we didn't come here like this. And if we didn't come here like this, something tells me that for over 200 years, something has happened not reinvent. They can't reinvent us,
No.
but to create a situation that we don't even know how to deal with until we get together, professionals and experts or whoever get together and point those things out, identify, examine, and create solutions. We're gonna always be at each other's throat.
And on that
God
note,
is in charge. and
God
we're
is
gonna
in
follow
charge.
his lead.
We're gonna bring you back again.
thank you, my brother. Thank you so much.
And you got to keep your conferences going.
Okay, we'll do.
Yes. And I thank all of you who's watching and will watch. And if you enjoy the program, I continue to say, my producer's going to make me say, you can share, you can like, you can cash app, you can do whatever. Just remain loyal to us and we'll remain loyal to you. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.